when it wasn't fashionable, Willie, back in the summer, to be getting in a fight over NSA metadata collection, which ended yesterday and has made us weaker and less able as an intelligence community. I was fighting that fight because I understood, based on my experience as a U.S. attorney, that this is necessary to protect the homeland. We got to focus on protecting the American people first.
Is Ted Cruz's position and Rand Paul's position on collecting metadata made America less safe?
Yes.
That was presidential candidate Governor Chris Christie on Morning Joe last week with his take on the recent NSA reforms and their impact on national security efforts. Joining us from Capitol Hill, one of the senators Christie referred to, Republican presidential candidate Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Good to have you on the show this morning.
Good morning.
So why don't we start there? Any change of heart on the NSA data collection program, or maybe a middle ground?
A lot has happened since Chris Christie made those comments.
Well, you know, there will always be people like Christie that are very willing to give up your liberty for a false sense of security. But, you know, we've studied this issue, and we found that the bulk data collection program didn't catch any terrorists and didn't prevent any attacks. The court looked at this. One court level below the Supreme Court, the Circuit Court, looked at this and found it to be illegal. And there is a big question here. Are we willing to give up all of our privacy? Are we willing to give up the idea that warrants should be individualized and allow data to be collected without anyone's name on the warrant? What Snowden revealed was that we were collecting all of Verizon's records on all Americans. Not that we had suspicion, not that we were targeting our research or targeting our collection of records. I think it's actually made us less safe, because I think the haystack is so large that we're getting lost in the haystack. I would like to target the people who are coming here to attack us. And I think people like Rubio and Christie and Bush, they're not willing to defend the border. And I think really we shouldn't have let this woman in from Saudi Arabia or Pakistan. We need to have some limits on who come to visit us. We need to make sure they're not intent on attacking us.
Okay.
That's how we defend the country.
And we can argue that. But what about the investigation as it stands now? I mean, isn't there something to be learned from...
Yeah, I think we should learn. Yeah, I think we should learn that we can't have open borders. And I've been advocating for several years now that students, immigrants, visitors, potential fiancés, all of them need more scrutiny. In my hometown of Bowling Green, Kentucky, we admitted 2 refugees. One of them was already in the database with the fingerprints on a bomb fragment, and we didn't know it because we weren't doing adequate vetting. I still don't think we have an adequate handle on who is and who are coming to visit us.
So, Senator, we just showed an AP story that said that the United States can't access the phone records, NSA phone records in the California terror case because, of course, that law was changed. Would you be willing to seek a middle ground? We had actually Governor Huckabee on earlier today saying that the government can collect the data, but you can't access it unless there is probable cause. Is that possibly a middle ground?
The Fourth Amendment's pretty clear on this, and for people to say you cannot access their records, they're just wrong. All you have to do is get a warrant. You can get any record you want once you have an individual's name and suspicion or probable cause, so it's just wrong. The other thing to keep in perspective here is the bulk data collection program has been ongoing for the last 6 months and really for the last decade. So the Boston bombing happened while we had the bulk data collection. The Paris tragedy happened while we have it. And also in France, they have the bulk collection, but on steroids. They have a program 1,000 times more invasive. So the question, is there any limit to how much liberty people, authoritarians like Christie, are willing to give up? I don't think there's any limit. They'll come back to you next week and say, we want more. Give us more of your freedom. Give us more of your freedom. We'll protect you. The bottom line is we can't have complete security, but we sure can give up our freedom. And will it have been worth it if we're no longer who we were, or we defend what's special about America in the process of defending the country?
Senator, there's a new poll out, CBS poll, that says over 60% of Americans now support sending ground troops to defeat ISIS. 63% now support ground troops necessary to remove the threat of ISIS. Ted Cruz last week said that we didn't have any stake in the Syrian civil war, that we didn't have a dog in that fight. First of all, do you disagree with that? And secondly, are you with the majority of Americans who say we should send more ground troops in to defeat ISIS?
I think we have to try to learn from history, and if there's one thing we can learn from the Middle East, regime change hasn't worked. You got people like Hillary Clinton and Marco Rubio who have advocated regime change in Libya, Syria, Iraq, you name it, but it hasn't worked. Every time we've toppled a secular dictator, we've gotten chaos and the rise of radical Islam. So this really needs to be a big debate. I want to be part of it because, you know what, I think when the American people hear the failure of our foreign policy in the Middle East, maybe they will choose another way.
So should Assad stay in power based on that formula of what we've learned in the past?
I think you have variations of evil on both sides of the civil war. Assad on one side,
right.
Al-Qaeda, ISIS, al-Nusra, radical Islam on the other side. And I don't think there's a victor there that we should say, oh, we're going to be a lot better off if Assad's gone. If Assad had been gone, like McCain and Graham and all these other people who want perpetual war, if we had toppled Assad a year or two ago, like Obama wanted, McCain wanted, everybody wanted, ISIS would be in charge of all of Syria now. So we need to learn from our history, and toppling and regime change and nation building have not worked in the past. They won't work in the future. The ultimate victory there is going to be when civilized Islam rises up to defeat this barbaric form of Islam that is ISIS.
So let me ask you a question I've been asking foreign policy leaders on both sides of the aisle for the past year. It's provocative, but it's sort of in line with what you're saying, with what a lot of people say off camera. Would the world be safer if Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, and Assad were comfortably in power today?
Yeah. I think it's a mistake to say we advocate for those dictators, but it's also a mistake to say that we advocate for toppling the dictators. I think sometimes neutrality within the Middle East is a better position, but that doesn't, I don't want it to be misinterpreted that somehow I'm an advocate for Saddam Hussein or an advocate for Gaddafi. But I think what we have now is much worse than what we had before.
I was going to say, but their removal has led to a far more chaotic state.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. There's chaos. The chaos is ongoing, but this is a big debate we have to have, because every Sunday you'll see on the morning programs Hillary Clinton and John McCain and Lindsey Graham all calling for more regime change and more nation building, and they have been wrong, and we continue to listen to them. We have to wake up.
All right, Senator Rand Paul, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Mark, can you do us a favor? Can you do me a favor right now? Because, you know, I'm a Republican and I like to win elections. And you win elections by getting people to vote for your party. Can you do something right now and say something nice about Muslim Americans right now who are pursuing the American dream, that are law-abiding, and let them know that you want them in our Republican Party every bit as much as you want Southern Baptists from Northwest Florida in the Republican Party?
Look,
because I'm worried. I'm so worried. I hear some of these other Republican candidates saying things, acting as if Muslim Americans are others, are not one of us.
No.
They are our brothers and sisters, are they not?
Absolutely. And look, we're not at war with Islam. I know the president says that, but I think we want him to say we are at war with the Islamists who are wanting to kill us. We're not at war with Presbyterians, but if Presbyterians start blowing up churches, and if they start blowing up other people and going in and killing people and say, yo, John Calvin, when they do it, we're going to be against Presbyterians.
If they did, you and I, no, radical Presbyterians, you and I would be the first ones to go to Presbyterian churches, hold their hands and say, we are with you against the extreme elements of your church, right?
I'm probably going to get in trouble with the Presbyterians. The Frozen Chosen will probably not vote for me.
But there's a little Baptist contempt right there.
No, but, you know, I look, there are so many.
You understand
wonderful,
my point.
Yes. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, for example, is a medical doctor in Arizona, one of the most outspoken Muslims in this country. He is a terrific example of a person who stands up and condemns the radical terrorist actions of people that he feels besmirches his faith.
Right.
I know medical doctors that I'm personally connected to, that I have a great personal relationship, who have been good supporters of mine. I'm not afraid of those guys. No reason to be. They're friends, they're citizens, they're terrific Americans. And no, we're not afraid of Islam, we're not afraid of Muslims, we're not in any way disparaging anybody who goes to a mosque. But we are making it very clear that if somebody wants to kill Americans, I don't care whether they're doing it in the name of Allah or if they're doing it in the name of, you know,
Jesus.
Whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. Former Governor Mike Huckabee, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Thank you, Governor. Good luck with the voice.
It'll
In
get
our
better.
next hour, and the knee.
And the knee.
Good Lord, you're falling apart.
Falling apart.
45 past the hour. Joining us now, our first of three Republican presidential candidates. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee joins us on the set. Good to have you.
Good to be back. Thank you very much. Nice to be on the set.
Governor, I want to follow up on something that Chris Christie said last week. Obviously, post San Bernardino, everybody's now looking at the NSA and some of the steps that we can do to prevent the next attack. Reports out this morning, law enforcement can't actually get access to this couple's phone records over the past 5 years. Do you agree with Chris Christie that Ted Cruz has made America less safe by opposing the NSA's ability to get phone records over 5 years?
You know, I don't want to criticize the actions of one senator. I think what we need to recognize, there has to be a good balance between protecting the constitutional rights of Americans and at the same time going after people who want to kill us.
Should we have repealed that data plan, that NSA data plan?
I think what we need to do is to have it so that when there is probable cause, have a clear understanding of what that means. Then yes, you can get the data, but you can't just go after every single American and delve into everything that they have, because that does violate the Constitution.
But
There's got to be a balance.
we should be able to go back 5 years, though, right? The NSA. Do you think the NSA should be able to collect the data like they were before?
I don't have a problem with them having access to the data once they have the ability to determine Mika has given us reason for probable cause, and now we're going to go back. I don't care how long you keep the data.
They can investigate it.
It's the access to the data that matters, not the presence of it.
So let me ask you on another front, another program that was gutted was the intel community's ability to capture and interrogate terrorists. Should we start that program back up like we had after 9/11?
If we think a person has information that would save American lives, yes, we should use whatever means available. I don't think that some of the means of enhanced interrogation were actual torture. And I do believe that we stop short of torture.
But we don't even have the I mean, we can debate which techniques can and cannot be used.
But we should have the program.
But we don't even have the program.
We should have the program
right now.
Because the number one goal of the American president, the number one goal of the American government is protect the American people.
Well, do you think the president said anything of measure last night that was helpful to the country?
Not really. I think he blew a great opportunity. I think he used an Oval Office address. What was the opportunity? The opportunity was to give Americans reassurance that this was a president who is totally focused on protecting us. I didn't hear that last night. I did not hear that his main focus was, we're going to do whatever it takes. We know who these people are. We're going after them. This was not the Roosevelt speech the day after Pearl Harbor, like today we observe Pearl Harbor Day. Remember what Roosevelt was able to do, and he asked Congress for the authority to go after the Japanese. I'm telling you, one of the things this president could have done last night is saying, I'm going to Congress this week, I'm going to ask them for the authorization to go after ISIS, to go after any form of radical Islam that threatens America, and we're not going to stand by. That would have been a call to action.
Perhaps a more challenging question would be, what about your Republican counterparts and their critiques, everything from making sand glow to saying words I can't say on television? Isn't that destructive too?
Most of my Republican opponents are getting all the airtime they need without my assistance. So what I would just want to say is that I think that many Republican candidates are speaking to the exasperation of Americans who feel that this president is just detached himself from the reality that they face. He's protected by armed guards every day. Most Americans are not. The people that went to that holiday party last week in San Bernardino thought they were having a nice, wonderful dinner with their colleagues. One of them sat with them and had lunch, got up and came back and shot them all. This is what people are afraid of. Who can they trust? And they're not like the president, who is surrounded by an armed force. And so if they don't have his protection, they want to know that he's going to provide, through the government resources, at least a better form of protection than, let's not offend anybody, let's not hurt anyone's feelings. People are angry. And I tell you, from every day on the campaign trail, there is an extraordinary sense of outrage, and because of what they feel is a disconnect of this president and the threats.
What's so fascinating, Willie, is, again, we play the Hillary Clinton clips, and she sounds almost Churchillian when she says, we must fight them in the air, we must fight them on the ground, we must fight them online. there is such a disconnect between this president and even members of his own party.
So where do you think, Governor, that disconnect is? What's missing in his approach to fighting ISIS? And I'm talking military now. What else would you be doing that he's not doing?
Well, I wouldn't leave anything off the table. I know the big controversy, ground troops, no ground troops. You would never tell your enemy what you're not going to do. Number one, you never give the limitations of either your will or your capacity, because once you've done that, you've now outlined for your enemy exactly your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities. That's a foolish thing to do. So I think we don't take any option off the table. We include ground troops. We make sure that we build that relationship and coalition with the nations, not only of the Gulf states. Some of my fellow Republicans don't think we ought to have anything to do with Russia. If Russia is willing to go kill members of ISIS, then I think we should be grateful they're willing to do it. And I don't know that I trust Putin or Russia, but I certainly would be delighted if they want to run, whether it's airstrikes or put ground troops, and take some of these thugs out. Let's do it.
The president did call out Islamic extremists, and I think he said something new while urging for unity with our Muslim American counterparts.
I did not hear him use the term Islamic terrorist.
Well,
I heard him say terrorist, not Islamic terrorist, only terrorist.
But he did connect for the first time.
Yeah,
He
I'm
did.
sorry,
Got as close as he's gotten.
He talked
Yes.
about people that
As
pervert the
close
word
as
of
he's
Islam.
gotten.
All right, can you do us a favor? Can you do me a favor right now? Because, you know, I'm a Republican and I like to win elections. And you win elections by getting people to vote for your party. Can you do something right now and say something nice about Muslim Americans right now who are pursuing the American dream, that are law-abiding, and let them know that you want them in our Republican Party every bit as much as you want Southern Baptists from Northwest Florida into the Republican Party?
Absolutely. Look,
Because I'm worried. I'm
Yeah.
so worried. I hear some of these other Republican candidates saying things, acting as if Muslim Americans are others, are not one of us.
No.
They are our brothers and sisters, are they not?
Absolutely. And look, we're not at war with Islam. I know the president says that, but I think we want him to say we are at war with the Islamists who are wanting to kill us. We're not at war with Presbyterians, but if Presbyterians start blowing up churches, and if they start blowing up other people and going in and killing people and say, yo, John Calvin, when they do it, we're going to be against Presbyterians.
If they did, you and I, no, radical Presbyterians,
That's
you and I
right.
would be the first ones to go to
Yes.
Presbyterian churches, hold their hands and say, we are with you against the extreme elements of your church, right?
I'm probably going to get in trouble with the Presbyterians. The Frozen Chosen will probably not vote for me.
But there's a little Baptist contempt right there.
No, but you know, I look, there are so many
You understand my
wonderful
point.
Yes. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, for example, is a medical doctor in Arizona, one of the most outspoken Muslims in this country. He is a terrific example of a person who stands up and condemns the radical terrorist actions of people that he feels besmirches his faith.
Right.
I know medical doctors that I'm personally connected to, that I have a great personal relationship, who have been good supporters of mine. I'm not afraid of those guys. No reason to be. They're friends, they're citizens, they're terrific Americans. And no, we're not afraid of Islam, we're not afraid of Muslims, we're not in any way disparaging anybody who goes to a mosque. But we are making it very clear that if somebody wants to kill Americans, I don't care whether they're doing it in the name of Allah or if they're doing it in the name of, you know,
Jesus.
Whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. Former Governor Mike Huckabee, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to be
have
with
you.
you
Thank you,
guys.
Governor. Good luck with the voice.
It'll
In
get
our
better.
been
next
singing
hour,
a lot.
and the knee.
And the knee.
Good Lord, you're falling apart.
Falling apart.
In our next hour, welcome to the club. Former Governor Jeb Bush and Senator Rand Paul will both be our guests.